Hi, and welcome to In the Zone. I'm Ethan Moore. In this conversation, I go in the zone with Beth Woerner, the development coach for the University of Charleston in West Virginia, and one of the only female coaches in NCAA baseball. Our conversation covered her career path from analyst to coach, her unique experiences as a woman in baseball, and much more. Enjoy our conversation. Sweet. Well, do you want to just get started with telling me a little bit about your current role and just kind of describing like what you do?
Yeah, so my current role, my title is development coach, which means I do a little bit of everything. So I work with our infielders, is the position group that I work with. We have another infield coach as well. So that's kind of where I'm at on training. And then I also work with our development program. So whether that is researching for um, our opponent for game day, putting together development plans. Depends on what we need each day. That's kind of, we have a large coaching staff here, which is good because we don't end up getting, we all have our own responsibilities, but there's a lot, we each do a lot of stuff. So it's pretty cool. And then I'll work with our development team. I will be an on-field coach for that. So that's exciting for me. I
Cool.
don't know,
Yeah, you're wearing the UC.
kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And we'll get into the specifics of the job in a second. But will you also mention the school that you are coaching for and what level that is?
Oh yeah, sorry. University of Charleston, West Virginia, and it's a Division II school in Charleston, West Virginia, capital of West Virginia.
All right, very cool. So how did you get this position and kind of what were you doing before that? Basically, what's your background?
Yeah, before I started playing baseball is kind of how I got into the sport to begin with. My brother played growing up, so I was always around the game, and then I eventually started playing myself. Um, and then I'm not very good at playing baseball, but when I started playing, I started to do a lot more research on how to get better at the sport and how to, um, and starting to learn a little bit more of the details of the different aspects of the game. Um, and then when I did that, I learned about Driveline and the research they were doing and other people. And at the time it was that was early time for like Rapsodo being used as a coaching tool and not just like data. Pitch tracking data has been around since 2008, 2009, but it didn't really start to come to the coaching front until a couple of years ago. And at that time, people from Driveline, Baseball Prospectus, MLB coaches were all having conversations on Twitter about various pitching metrics and stuff. So at that point, it was kind of the same time when I started to research myself. So at that, I was involved with a lot of conversations early on. That's where the people at Baseball Prospectus found me, and I started to work with them a little bit to do some research. Had a couple failed projects early on, or tried to solve a problem or do a little research, and it didn't work out. But so that's kind of how I got started in baseball. And at some point, I realized that I like doing the data analytics type research side, but I really liked being able to use that information to help players improve. So that's when I sort of started. I knew I wanted to coach, so then I started to try to get experience, certifications and things that would get me into a coaching position. And then last January, a year ago, um, Coach Britt here at Charleston decided to hire me into the development coach position, where I could contribute some of the information that I already knew on the research side, and then also get experience coaching. So it was a good fit in terms of what I could provide to the program here, as well as what the program could provide for me in my career. So kind of a little brief background in how I got here.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's interesting to me that you kind of went from like an analytics background to now being in coaching, which is kind of a different direction that I don't hear about too often. So how was making that transition, and like once you got into the job that you have right now, like finally working with players, which you hadn't been doing up until that point?
I think we'll probably see a lot more people move in this direction as time continues. But I think what's been the most challenging is that a lot of the stuff that other coaches who either played baseball at a higher level, whether it's college or professionally, or who always knew that they wanted to coach and sort of started in the coaching realm, it's the things that I'm learning are things that they learned a long time ago, potentially even as a kid when they were playing. So like, for example, my first game day, I had no idea where to stand in the dugout or what to do. Like, what is a coach supposed to do? So that was something that I was learning that is probably pretty unique to me. I'm sure there are other coaches who've had to learn that, but I I asked somebody that on game day, and it was really it felt embarrassing. It was just I'm learning stuff that is probably common knowledge from a different perspective, but it's been good, and the first few weeks were definitely a challenge, but so I think that's probably the biggest difference between if I had come a different direction.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it seems like throughout your time being interested in baseball, the kind of common thread has been like wanting to help players improve. And it's cool that, when I first met you and became aware of you, you were with Baseball Prospectus and doing more analytics stuff. So it's cool to learn that earlier on, like your first experiences in baseball were also having to do with coaching, it sounds like. So this seems like this is kind of a trend, right?
Yeah, I guess we are all just drawn to what we want to do. I think the opposite is probably true for you as well. Just being drawn to the more analytical side of things. I don't know. I guess it was easier for other people to see that maybe coaching is what I wanted to do than it was for me. I didn't even consider it for a while as something that was possible until someone pointed it out to me, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I would enjoy doing that. So I guess we're just enjoy the things we enjoy. Figuring out what they are is the hard part.
Yeah. So as of right now, what's kind of your dream job in baseball? Like if you could, design your own job, what would that look like?
Well, my dream job, if I could, I'm not going to get there tomorrow, but my dream job is to be a manager of a Major League Baseball team. I think that would be extremely fun. High pressure, working with the best athletes in baseball. I think that would be so cool. Obviously, there's a long way to go to get there, but I think the manager role is really cool because you get to participate in all of the different parts of the team, and you get to build a culture. You get to be a part of the decision making. You get to build a coaching staff that reflects the way you want your organization to be run. It seems like such a fun job to me, and you get to be at the baseball field every day. I don't know. We'll see. I think if I don't make it there, whatever I do on the way to get there, or to attempt to get there anyways, will be fun. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I love to hear that. That fires me up. So I kind of in listening to your story, it sounds like it kind of reminds me of this role that's kind of like becoming a thing now, that was kind of introduced in the book, The MVP Machine, talking about it was called the Conduit, which is a person that is very familiar with the coaching side of things and the analytics side of things. I think right now that kind of person, or the kinds of people that have those jobs for Major League and minor league baseball teams, are former players. But it seems to me that you're kind of like on a path that you might potentially be good at that job. Is that something that you might be interested in doing kind of more in the short term?
Yeah, for sure. I think something sort of that I found interesting is that going to like ABCA baseball coaches conference and listening, just sitting in on a conversation of a group of coaches, the questions that they are asking are questions that analysts have had answered for years now. It just hasn't translated to the coaching side. And then the opposite is also true. Questions that analysts are asking at conferences like Sabre Seminar, coaches have had answered for years as well. So there's like a kind of both sides need to meet up and answer each other's questions, and a lot of information about baseball would be streamlined, I guess, to make the best team. And I think that the best teams in pro ball and even at the college level are attempting to do that, to merge the information on both sides, and have both sides learn from each other. And I think the trend is going to be, eventually, the trend will be that the analysts will be aware of more of the coaching side, the coaches will be aware of more of the analyst side, and eventually there won't be the need for that conduit role. But I think for the time being, there's still a pretty wide gap between the two. And I think that is something that I possibly could do, because even though the analytics side is not what I enjoy doing the most, like I don't enjoy trying to figure out the math or the coding, but I do understand it enough to know how to communicate with the analyst and say, hey, here's what we're trying to figure out on the coaching side. Can you maybe like look into the numbers or do something? Because I think on the analyst side, a lot of the specific details are more important than on the coaching side, where like the way the player feels, or the way that the player interprets the actions, even if it doesn't match up with the numbers, is more important, because it's less about the specific data and more about being able to get the player to execute whatever they're trying to do, whether it's throw a pitch a certain way or just getting out or hit the ball. So I think the information, the way that it's communicated within an analyst group and within the coaching and player group, that eventually it'll merge, because it's becoming more common for coaches to have coding experience, or for analysts to have coaching or playing experience. I think eventually it won't matter, but there is that disconnect. And I think being able to communicate with both sides and understanding both is important, not only for the person in the middle, but for each party, to try to just get the best baseball we can. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you made a couple of really good points there, and one that kind of sticks out to me is that we kind of, or at least teams, it seems like, have been trying to get their coaches to be more like analysts, right? Like learning code, and being able to kind of think in this kind of logical or probabilistic way. And it seems like teams aren't having their analysts think more like coaches, or kind of having that overlap, at least in my experience. But I think you're right that, analysts have a lot to learn from coaches and coaches from analysts. And but this kind of information revolution has happened so quick that maybe we haven't had enough time for that overlap to fully happen yet. But it seems like people like you are part of that, next wave of people who are going to have experience in both, both sides of things that can really be beneficial to a team.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that I've learned I don't remember who said it, so I apologize to whoever said it. It was one of the, I think it might have been at the women's MLB hosted a Take the Field event, which is normally hosted at winter meetings, but they did it virtually this year because of COVID, and it's just an event for women who work or will work in baseball. Somebody was mentioning about how 1 out of 8 times, but it's the coach's role to figure out if today is the one of those 8 times or not. Sorry, I think my internet is bad. I keep freezing.
It
So
cut
just
out
let
a
me
little
know if I
bit.
need to stop or whatever.
Yeah, it cut out a little bit, but what was the one out? I heard the 1 out of 8. What was the 1 out of 8?
Yeah, so the analytics might tell you that a player is going to perform 1 out of 8 times in the situation, and it's the coach's job to determine if today is that 1 out of 8 times or if it's one of the 7 and somebody else would be a different option. So I forget who was saying that, but I thought that was really cool because even if you have merged the two perfectly well, the analytics and the coaching, there's still going to be it's still humans playing the game, so there's still going to be things that can't be measured with data and player feelings, psychology, all kinds of other stuff that factors into the performance of the players, that will be important to a coach, no matter how perfect the analytics become. So
Yeah,
yeah, well,
totally
it's
agree.
going to be interesting to see how it changes in the future.
Yeah, things are changing really quickly. So
Sorry.
maybe, maybe the next time we talk, it might be totally different. Who knows? Cool. Well, I want to ask you about your time at Baseball Prospectus. And you mentioned that you had a couple, you called them failed projects. In my experience, I've learned a lot from failed projects, sometimes even more, learning more from failures than from successes. And I'm just curious about your entire experience at Baseball Prospectus and just like, what did you learn in that time?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So um, at Baseball Prospectus, especially specifically the stats team, um, the projects are kind of just like you can do whatever interests you. And I was kind of like an intern. Oh, I wasn't officially called that, but so I didn't have any major. At first, I didn't have any like responsibilities for the day-to-day work that Baseball Prospectus does. Um, so I just had the freedom to research whatever I wanted to research or jump on and help with something else. So something that I wasn't one of the failed projects was that the women's baseball World Cup was going to be in at the Space Coast uh, uh, facility in Florida, and they had flight scope. So we got the first, what we think is the first women's baseball pitch tracking from the 2018 World Cup, and we put it in a baseball website or a Baseball Prospectus website that's similar to Brooks Baseball. Um, that was kind of like the first project I called to get the data to set up. I honestly am not sure what happened because I think a phone call I made to try to get the data, they thought I was a different person um, than they originally. They thought they were talking to somebody from a different organization or something. So I'm not sure how that worked out, but eventually we got the proper credentials to get the information, and then we cleaned the data up and got it prepared for the website. So that was a pretty cool project, to kind of learn about collecting pitch tracking data and cleaning the data, um, making sure that everything was correct. You've used TrackMan, so you know that it's not always perfect and sometimes needs some help to get on the right page. So I did a lot of that work and watching a lot of video and and checking to make sure it's the right pitcher and for each pitch and that kind of thing. So that was kind of like the big project I did at Baseball Prospectus that was successful. Then a couple other things, helping trying to get international baseball data included with what Baseball Prospectus provides on the website. A couple other little projects here and there. One of the ones that failed, I was trying to code, and it turns out I can't say this for sure, but I think that it was a TrackMan problem. The stuff that everyone's been talking about with TrackMan and Hawkeye spin. I think that if I had Hawkeye spin data, that I wouldn't have failed it, because the difference in the spin axis is what caused my code to fail. So hopefully that'll, once that comes out a little more, it'll make me at least feel better about failing it, that it wasn't my fault. But
Yeah,
we'll see.
Sounds like you were on the front lines of some experimental baseball information that you may not have even known about yet, or no one knew about yet. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, didn't feel cool at the time.
But yeah, so I'm very interested in the fact that you were able to get a bunch of data for women's baseball, and like you said, that was the first time that's ever happened. Can you tell me more about your involvement with just helping women's baseball however you can, I guess?
Yeah, well, so like I said before, that's how I started playing. I started playing in the Eastern Women's Baseball Conference, which is a baseball league in the DC, Baltimore area. So I definitely enjoy playing baseball, and there's usually 3 women's tournaments every year. This year they didn't happen because of COVID. And then there's several other like youth girls tournaments that happen throughout the year. So I enjoy playing, and that's how I got started. So I definitely want to encourage other women to play because baseball's fun, and also girls. I think there's a place for girls and women to play if they want to play, the same way that there is for any boy or man. You don't have to be the best baseball player to play baseball. If you did, a lot less people would play in general. And the league is just a lot of fun, the women's league. So I guess I've done a lot of research and just talking to people about who other women who've played, other women who have coached, just try to understand the history of it a little bit, and just get to know everyone who looks like me and is interested in baseball. So there's a lot of women out there women and girls who like baseball and like playing it and like coaching it. But there's still few enough that you get to know most of the people in the community. So it's a good little community.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you get the sense that community is growing, or that like the number of leagues and opportunities for girls to play baseball is growing?
Yeah, for sure. So MLB in the last, like, I think 3 or 4 years have had girls baseball events that are included in their Dream Series and Breakthrough Series events that are specifically for girls. And then there's also Justine Siegel's organization, Baseball for All, which they have several tournaments and quite a few teams who participate. And I'm really excited for those girls because I know that all of those programs grow every year. So I'm excited to see what happens when those girls get to like the high school and college level, or even if they don't play in college and just continue to play as adults. I'm excited to see where new leagues and teams will pop up. I know that. So the Eastern Women's Baseball Conference hosts the tournament on Memorial Day weekend. It's a women's tournament, and last year we had a full team of younger girls who played and did pretty well in the tournament. So I think there's the future of women's baseball is pretty exciting. There's going to be a lot of girls who reach the adult age or high school age, and there's just more every year. So I hope that all of those girls will continue to play, even if they're not good enough to play college or professional. I hope they'll continue to play just for fun because it is fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, very cool. And that's a good segue into my next question, which, I don't really want to bury the lead here in this interview, but you mentioned in a tweet that you're one of 4 female NCAA coaches as of the end of 2020, which obviously is an incredible accomplishment. But I want to hear from you. What does it mean to you to be part of that kind of exclusive group?
I would say on like a day-to-day, like showing up to practice, working with our team. I don't think it makes a difference. Like, I feel like I'm just a member of the team here. So on the day-to-day level, it doesn't feel different. I don't feel like I'm one of 4. But when it comes to thinking about a little bit about the big picture, it's pretty cool. Like, I don't understand why there's so few, because there's so many women out there who are very knowledgeable about baseball and very very well equipped to be good baseball coaches. But so there's the 4, which one of the 4 is Bianca Smith, who was hired by the Red Sox. So it'll actually be 3 after she transitions to the Red Sox. And then there's a couple other women. So I think Texas has a woman who is their director of player development. And then there's a couple other women here and there. But I think that there's only the 4 in on-field positions. I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's somebody that I don't know about. And we were all hired within the same 6 months. And then we were also it was the same time period when the women were hired in pro ball. So it's really exciting that so many women have been hired in such a short period of time. And I hope that continues to grow, and I hope there continues to be more. What I think is really cool about it is during when COVID first shut down our team, and everybody, pro ball and college, was still trying to figure out like how are we gonna move forward, and most people were self-isolating or whatever you want to call it at home. We got together a group of women coaches, whoever could join. It included Bianca and Alyssa Nacken joined for a couple of the calls. Rachel Folden joined. And then a couple high school coaches as well have joined. So I think just getting to know everyone, because there's so few of us, it's really cool to just talk to each other and have that small group that kind of understands the things that are different without having to explain it. So I don't know. It's a good group of people, and I hope it continues to grow.
Yeah, that's super cool that you guys kind of have each other to lean on and that you've been in communication. And I think you may not think of yourself as kind of a groundbreaking person, but it seems like you are in the way that you are breaking this barrier in college baseball and doing it really well. So I think one of the more exciting things about someone breaking a barrier is like the kind of flow that sometimes happens next, where like once colleges and pro teams realize, okay, we can do this, hopefully the numbers start to grow and we kind of keep that momentum going, right? Do you think that that's something that could happen in the next few years?
I hope so. I mean, there's been so many, and not just baseball, but in sports in general, with Sarah Fuller with Vanderbilt football, the kicker, and then many women in the NFL have been coaching at pretty high levels and at some pretty good teams. And then also the coaches at the pro level in MLB, and Kim Ng being hired It's just a lot of different areas where women have really um, gotten the recognition, like in Kim Ng's situation. She's finally in that position that I feel like a lot of people would agree she should have had a long time ago. And then just a lot of like breakthrough moments or big hires for women in sports this year or last year. So it's pretty exciting, and I think it'll continue to happen. I think one thing is every time a woman shows up and just does the job well, or even just adequately, that gives the perception that, oh, maybe we can hire a woman in this position, because a lot of times it's especially in a baseball where the culture is very heavily like a male dominated culture. Um, every time you see a woman in a coaching role, it changes that perspective a little bit and makes it easier for the next woman to get a job, or even just be considered for it, even if she's not given the position. Just becomes the more normal it becomes, the easier it becomes for all women to show up and do their job. But yeah.
Cool. I mean, there's so many benefits for any team to have a variety of perspectives in decision-making roles or really in any role. And it's something that you would think would be like a huge competitive advantage for teams to have that. And it's kind of odd that it's taken this long, but I'm certainly glad that it has, and hopefully it continues. So yeah, that is a very cool trend. And I'm curious about, so you mentioned a couple of the other high profile female coaches that you've been in contact with. And I'm curious about like kind of who has been like a mentor to you over, the course of your baseball career, and who have you kind of looked up to maybe even early on before there were all these high profile female coaches?
Well, like I said, there's quite a few women who connected during the COVID time. At that point, I was already coaching, and I think most of the people who before I got this position that were encouraging me to do it were family members or just other people who had supported me at Baseball Prospectus. But in terms of like other women coaches, I think Bianca Smith is probably the other woman coach that I'm the closest to. She and I connected. We met at ABCA baseball coaches conference last January, which was the weekend before I started coaching. So that's when I met her. And then we kind of connected more and bonded and had a lot of conversations during the COVID time. And just getting to know her and her coaching. She has some funny stories. One of our favorite conversations to have with other coaches is like that dugout or not competition, the like those funny things that they have in the dugout. Here at Charleston, we have this thing. They call it Barry. It's like a stuffed mannequin thing. It's weird, but the guys love it, and it's a lot of fun. That it like when a guy hits a home run, they'll bring Barry. It's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like, I don't guess it's like I honestly don't really want to know what it's meant to be for, but it's like a stuffed doll, and it has plastic hands, and they put a UC baseball shirt on. And when they hit a home run, Barry goes out with like all the team, and they'll throw Barry at the guy who hit the home run. And Bianca has a funny story about the rally fish, which it's interesting. Basically, a bird or something just dropped a fish in the outfield, and they brought it into the dugout. So they had a dead fish. They got a couple wins in a row, and the coaches were cheering for them to lose so that they could say, okay, no more rally fish. It smelled bad.
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah, that's like our favorite conversation to have is like, you've heard of the college teams having their dugout luck charms that are interesting, but that's the fun part of college baseball. But yeah, it's just been really cool talking to her, hearing her experiences and asking for advice if I feel like um, something that she would understand that maybe other coaches wouldn't. It's just a good friendship, and I'm very excited for her in the Red Sox position, and I cannot wait to see what she does there. That she's well deserved. It's disappointing to see when she was hired, so many people questioning her experience. Um, Obviously, they don't know her because she is one of the most hardworking people I've ever met. I She must have more hours in the day than everyone else because she's always learning something, always working on a certification, always reading something, always researching something. It's really, really cool, really, really motivating just to even know her. So I'm excited to see what she does.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you have that kind of role model who is kind of someone that you can follow in the footsteps of, or at least learn some lessons from. So that's really cool. Um, I'm curious about your time in coaching, and you started, and you, like you said, didn't have a ton of coaching experience, and now you're really in the swing of things. So, kind of what changed between when you started and now? What have you learned? What have been kind of some keys to success for you?
I think a lot would just have to be the culture here of the coaching staff and the players here at the University of Charleston. Um, our coaching staff, it's a pretty large coaching staff. We've had like 7 to 8 people. There's been some turnover of who's here, but we've had about that many people the whole time I've been here. And everyone has a very different perspective. Um, but everyone is very open-minded, and it's a young coaching staff. Everyone's open-minded. Everyone's here to get better and to get our players better. Um, so I think most of what I've learned has been thanks to the staff here. Um, Always willing to learn, always willing to have a conversation and ask questions. Never question the fact that, like I said earlier, the stuff I've had to learn is the more basics, not the right word, but the more common sense almost type stuff, like where to stay in the dugout, how to hit a fungo, um, what a training environment looks like, and just all those kinds of things that if you played or if you've been in baseball a little bit longer, um, you would know that. Nobody's ever made me feel like I shouldn't be here because I don't know those things, because they know that there's information that I know that can help them to get better. So they're willing to be open and minded and help me learn the things that I don't know. It's just a very good culture in our on our coaching staff, and I'm glad that this is where I started out, because I think that I might not have had the experience that I've had here if I was somewhere else. I don't know if it's a great group of people. Everyone's very different. It's not perfect. We do argue and we do disagree on a lot because we're so different. But I think the differences is what makes it good, especially because um as a coach, they're a player, each player on the team might connect with a different coach differently. So having such a variety of different coaches allows for the players to find a coach who maybe they relate better to, or that has information closer to what they need to learn. So it's just an environment that encourages and almost requires learning, which is good. So I've been able to learn a lot of the stuff that might make me feel insecure or unable to do my job in other environments here. So it's been a great place. And a lot of that is because Coach Britt is a great leader of people. He's our head coach here, and he hires amazing coaches who, like, he doesn't want all of the coaches to be the same. He wants us to be different and to have our own thoughts and opinions and different experiences and those different perspectives. We can all work together to come up with the best solution or the best environment for our players. So it's been a lot of fun. It's pretty cool. I've really enjoyed learning how to be a coach and getting better at it. I don't know if I'm a good coach yet or not, but I know I'm a better coach than when I showed up here in Charleston. It's thanks to learning from every other coach here and just being a part of it. And the players have been amazing as well. They also understand, like, we're all young coaches here on this coaching staff. We all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, and we have a large coaching staff, so they know that one coach might not be good at something or another coach may be really good at something. They know to go to which coach to get what they need in order to be the best they can be. So it's just a really good environment to start out in, and to learn that for the first couple of weeks were hard. It was a steep learning curve, but I never felt like I didn't belong here or like this isn't the place where I can learn that stuff. So it's a good environment.
That's amazing. Yeah, it sounds like it's a really healthy environment for learning and for developing as a coach. So that's super cool, and I'm glad to hear that. My last question for you here is just kind of like, what advice do you have to people who want to follow in your footsteps?
My best advice is probably to be stubborn and not let people tell you that you can't do something, but to also listen, like we were talking about earlier. We're kind of drawn to what we like to do and what we're good at. So just do it. Like, just try it out. If it works out, it will work out, and don't get frustrated by the people who tell you can't. As an example, so many people have told me, like, when I was at the point where I knew I wanted to coach, but I didn't have the experience to get a coaching position yet. So many people told me, "Oh, but the players won't respect you because you're a woman," or whatever excuse. But then I got here, and that's definitely not the case. I've never had an issue with player respect. Like, sometimes the players will accidentally say something either inappropriate or that may be disrespectful unintentionally, but there's never been an intentional level of disrespect, which has been a surprise. Like, players, I don't know if that is unique to Charleston or if that is just players in general. I'm sure there are players who are less understanding or maybe hesitant at first, but I've never had an issue with respect. So that says a lot about the players that we have here at Charleston, but also it's just not an issue. The players want to get better, and they're gonna listen to anyone who will try to help them get better. So it doesn't matter what you look like. So I guess the advice is just, if it's something you want to do, don't let anyone tell you can't, whether that's playing baseball, coaching baseball. Just get to know as many people as possible. Most people have been great and willing to help, or even just have a conversation, which is awesome.
Very cool. Awesome. Sweet. Is there anything else that you want to mention or shout out or anything like that before we say goodbye here?
I think I'm good.
All right. Sweet. Well, thank you for joining me, and I really appreciated your time here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.